Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Board Gaming Doctor. My name is Phil, and I'll be your Board Game Doctor today. In this video, I'm going to present to you the perfect solution, as we know so far, to the solo game of Caverna. This is the base solo game, not the weekly challenges that add a little bit of variation and limitation to the game. This is the solo mode as is written in the rulebook. So everything is static in setup. All the buildings are there for you to purchase, as well as all of the round markers are in a particular order. So this is quote unquote a solvable puzzle. And fortunately for us, many smart people have attempted this solution and have come to the high score of 205. This was achieved almost 10 years ago and was portrayed on Board Game Arena, but this is, for your reference, the app version of that. There is a minor hiccup in the scoring, and I'll get to that once we reach that section. But anyway, I wanted to make some commentary along the way and offer what I learned from this solution to see if this can translate to the weekly challenges of which I am trying to participate and get better at this game with, as well as the multiplayer game. So off the bat, the first building that we put down is the Carpenter. Now, the Carpenter is an excellent building because it will offer us some discounts along the way. The Carpenter, every time you furnish a cavern, you receive a discount of a wood. So that these discounts, as we plan to build a lot of these buildings and these rooms into the cavern by the end of the game, are a large source of points for us. We are excavating a lot, so we have room for some early buildings to give us some opportunities, but also to get that food up in the corner to feed us early on. So I believe here the next building is going to be the stone carver. And there it is. And so we get a bonus of +2 stone, as well as that discount of 1 stone as well in the future. So we start the game off with our discounting rooms, and that will really help us along the way. We are grabbing some dogs as well, so we can house some sheep on our pastures, with and without fences, particularly later on. So we, at this point, have enough food already to feed our family. And as we approach the first harvest in round 3, what we're going to do is we took that wood from logging and now furnished the guest room, which gives us the benefit of an either-or action, whether it's from an action, worker placement action, or from a building, etc., becomes both. And so we will see how that benefits us later on. I've noticed in other games, especially multiplayer games, that the person who does grab the guest room has a big advantage as well. So here, after we have fed our family, we do have the opportunity to only feed 2 people. So in this round 4, we are getting started on our food engine, or I should say grain and veggie engine. We do that by placing on sustenance, and we also will put out a mixed dwelling, as well as wish for children's, since we have enough resources, especially at that discount, for the stone and for the wood. And we go with a mixed dwelling here so we can have room for some animals. If you watched my video earlier on the weekly challenge that I did as like my baseline, I feel like this mixed dwelling building would have really come in handy to be able to house some pigs early on for myself. So I like that building placement, and the dwelling placement was done on purpose because we're trying to set up for one of the end game bonus point buildings. I believe it's called the State Parlor, that we'll see, which will give us a lot of opportunity there in the future for points. So we grab some rubies. Once again, keeping in mind in the solo mode, if you reach 6 of a certain resource and go to add another one after that, meaning 7, you'd have to spend a ruby to keep them on the board. Otherwise, they are gone. So it's important to grab those rubies as as soon as we can here. Is a good opportunity to do so. But these rubies as well give us an opportunity for as a wild resource essentially, and so we not only are able to uh, place down a grain that we had obtained earlier through sustenance, but we used a ruby to make a vegetable so we can sow and at least get our fields going for those. We placed the tiles as such so we can go ahead to the sheep farming and place down a large pasture. Here we do, I believe, use that discount of 1 wood to allow for that large pasture to be placed at a discount. And the stables are free too. And that's one great thing about the stone carver, is that stables are free and we can save that stone for other buildings and such. So I believe here we place a small pasture instead of a large one with the 1 wood discount and 1 wood resource that we have for that. So here we will eat some sheep, eat the grain and vegetable to feed ourselves. And this is previously the highest score was 203 or 204. And then this additional score actually allows, or this play pattern lets us take 1 begging marker, actually. And I believe we do that because we used our rubies to allow ourselves to get cows earlier on so we can start breeding them. Not only are we breeding them, but we also have essentially for 7 food, 3 or 6 food, as we eat a cow, a pig, and a sheep every harvest. So that comes in handy as a steady source of food for us and will allow us to get by until we have more room for more animals to breed and spread out. So, so I am. These pauses that you see in gameplay are me, looking at the script essentially to see what's going on here. So we do spend a ruby here to save the ore from going up to, or from disappearing, and we will use that ore, grab that ore, and then use it for the blacksmithing action, which is an action that we are utilizing very heavily throughout the rest of the game. The ability to do expeditions and have these resources available for us really create for a lot of the flexibility that we need to accomplish our goals. As well as build buildings, we don't have to use the housework action to do so. And we place down the ruby supplier, which gives us some really useful rubies in the next couple of rounds here. So originally, the highest score would branch to focus on building a breeding cave, and that did not happen here. So the ruby supplier is what the prescribed method is, and so it's really interesting to see how different 2 different approaches could be. I don't know what this other original solution entailed afterwards, but interesting to see how these extra rubies will help us out in the near future. So we went ahead and excavated, and we're going to wish for children. The placement for this new dwelling is going to be important. It's going to go right in the middle there. so that way we can use our dwellings to surround the state parlor later on, as I mentioned before. So now that we've placed our dwelling, we now have another worker available to us. We have to feed for 7 this round. And we're going to take the logging action, get that wood before it disappears, and use our bonus expedition to build the office room. Now, the office room is another strong building, so anytime it first allows you to overhang buildings. So you'll see that what that means if you don't know what that means. And you get 2 gold for each time you do it. And it's this office room that provides a drastically different score that we get in the app version as compared to Board Game Arena, and more on that later. Once again, using our animals to feed our family allows them to breed it back up to 3. We're going to use our rubies here to build fields. And so when I previously had thought about using rubies rather, or expeditions to build out a single placement tiles onto our board, I didn't think about using fields because I felt like we had gotten enough of those. But here we do have now 5 empty fields. We can sow 4 grain and vegetable at a time. We have exactly 2 of each, and so you'll see, having some fields along the way will help us maximize the amount that we get for both of those. And placing the field there too also allowed us to overhang this tile for some 2 gold. Now you can use gold to feed yourself, of course, but the benefit of having this gold is just to add to our points later on in the game, since we do have the means to feed ourselves already. So we're going to go ahead and sow the 2 grain and 2 veggies, and we're going to continue to excavate and place this double cavern overhanging down in the bottom right corner there. And that is going to be our go-to now as we perform like the slash and burn and the excavation actions. And this overhang will allow us to be able to surround extra dwellings for the state parlor. Speaking of which, we're going to place our next dwelling, our 3rd dwelling that we've built right there. So we're consistently here in the middle of the game, having enough resources and opportunities to furnish a dwelling, really utilizing the urgent wish for children to build dwellings and have new workers be placed out at the same time. Finally, we're going to blacksmith to furnish the broom chamber, which maxes out our points for having workers. And we're going for that max of 6 workers, of course. We also gain a vegetable and a boar. Now, this boar I cook to allow us to have enough food to feed that new worker that we just obtained. And we will eat some more boar, as well as our other animals, to make sure that we have enough room for everything. We do have room for that 4th sheep, so we don't need to worry about that. Getting extra vegetables with our expeditions is important, since we don't yield as much vegetables, obviously, than we do grain, and so it's good to have those so we can keep those as balanced as possible. As we do have the weaving parlor? We'll see. There is an endgame building that will allow us to maximize the amount of points for every pair of vegetable and grain that we have. So here we're going to build another field as well, do the same tactic that we did the last round, and this is where things are going to get a little interesting. We're going to perform that sustenance action again. Overhang for 2 more gold, bringing us to 9. And then the slash and burn down there at the bottom, creating some room for another large pasture to be placed. And once again, we do have exactly enough vegetables and grain to sow. Excavate another time, an overhang there at the bottom right again. And as we do so with the urgent wish for children, we're going to get our very last worker by building that additional dwelling in that overhanging spot, setting us up for the state parlor. £5 coming directly from the additional dwelling as well, which is not bad. So we take the blacksmithing action. We're going to get enough resource here to be able to play out our estate parlor. Then with our last expedition, we're going to place with our remaining wood a large pasture. Now we place it on this overhanging spot. Now you'll see that I gain 4 gold for doing so. That is not what happened in the board game arena or in the original mode. Now, I had to look this up because this is the branching point where my discrepant score at the end of the game was discrepant from this tutorial. So what happens is that someone on Board Game Geek many years ago asks what the this edge case is for the office room and for placing a double tile on an overhanging spot. Now you can place double tiles like the field and the pasture tile and the double cavern rooms and everything. If you hang over by one spot, right, you get 2 gold for doing that. In the rules, it didn't really specifically say what would happen if you placed a mine or a large pasture, for example, on 2 overhanging spots at the same time. They are twin tiles, but the original tiles on which they were placed on top of had already been placed there. Now this app, and I submitted a bug report just to make sure that they're aware. I don't know if it's truly a bug or not, but based off of the discussion that was made on Board Game Geek, it seems like Rosenberg, or at least the team behind Caverna, at Lookout, they said that as a part of the errata for this game, that you're not supposed to get gold for placing the double tiles like the large pasture on 2 overhanging spots. And so the original tutorial and procedure for getting the highest score for solo mode does not take into account what just happened with me in the app. They follow this errata, this semi-official reporting on the app, or on with the base game as well as on Board Game Arena. I believe that is programmed accordingly to the errata, but it's not programmed here, it looks like. And so either something changed, and if the app is following every single rule down to the specifications that this game now follows, then the newest score will be higher than the original highest score. But I think that this is a bug, and Caverna, the app itself, is relatively new, and so this is an edge case that maybe was not foreseen, and so I'm assuming that the ruling will be changed here in this app, and will follow what you would be able to see in the base game as well as on Board Game Arena, which is, I believe, programmed to follow that errata. So anyway, a long tangent and aside just to say that you might see a discrepancy in the score that you get here if you follow the prescribed pattern, the way that the Caverna app has it programmed, versus if you were to do or accomplish this on your tabletop or on Board Game Arena. So continuing on, we are in the second to last round already. And so we have missed out on a few things here, but we are continuing to, now that we have all the workers that we need, place out really big scoring tiles onto the board. And here is the food chamber. This is what I was referring to earlier, as we try to maximize the amount of grain and vegetables that we have at the end of the game. We were able to obtain donkeys with that last large pasture that we placed over the overhanging tiles. And so we have all the animals that we need now, and we will try to maintain a high number as much as possible with those, right? So as we continue on, we now have enough food to feed ourselves outright. We place the fodder chamber out as well, up at the top there, which gives us bonus points at the end of the game for our animals collectively. So this is a good lesson in what potentially are the buildings that offer us the most points at the end of the game, because I think it's intuitive to me now that, since Caverna is a game where you naturally will get a lot of points for accumulating pretty much everything, it's not as restrictive as the scoring is for Agricola. So it's natural to plan yourself to, obtain as many animals as well as much food and grain and vegetables as much as possible, and to utilize the rooms that allow for bonus points for those accumulations. Right, you're not trying to pursue anything that is in conflict with your main goal of accumulating those resources on your board. So that's what I appreciate about that. So there's the weaving parlor. We are going to end up with a lot of sheep at the end of this game, and so we will prefer to have that be a part of our score there. And then the main storage as well, since we do have a lot of yellow colored buildings. With our last expedition, we can sow one more time, keeping things as even as possible. And for the the food chamber to be as fruitful for us as possible. We're going to convert our rubies here into vegetables, since we are naturally behind in keeping things as even as possible with our grain. Rubies would be worth points at the end of the game, but this essentially somewhat doubles our points at the end of the game if we convert them into vegetables. So here you can see I keep converting them, and my score goes well beyond the 205 that is prescribed by the tutorial on Board Game Geek. And I think we will reach the final score here very soon in the breakdown of that. So a lot of the extra points really came in through the extra gold that we got once again, coming from that potentially misrepresented rule with those large pastures being placed at the end of the game, or sorry, at the over those overhanging tiles. So there you have it. Those are the steps that have been taken by those who are very smart at this game to obtaining the highest score possible. And so now you have that as a visual reference. And who knows, maybe there is something there that could be tweaked to allow us to officially, and not through any bugs whatsoever, obtain a really high score, a higher score in the future. And so good luck to all of you who are perhaps seeking that out, or needed this as a kind of a guide, as it was much for me, to help me understand the game, what kind of buildings I should try to pursue in my other plays. So the guest room, office room are very strong, and those end game objectives for having as many people as possible, the stateroom parlor, being surrounded by um, dwellings. I think that's really feasible if you do have the office room to do that. And of course, the other buildings for having lots of like sheep or pairs of grain and veggies, etc. So, yeah, we'll see how this translates, and we'll try to use these lessons and techniques in our weekly challenge attempt this week. So, stay tuned for that. Let me know what you think. And as always, thank you for scheduling an appointment with me today, and hope you schedule another one in the future. Take care.